I teach our course on change and consultation, which is an interest that many of our students have professionally in terms of what they'll do after they leave our program. And it's a course that's a practicum course, meaning that we actually work with real clients. And we get to know those clients and diagnose their organizations and gather data through interviews, surveys, other ways of finding out what's going on. And then we share that information in our analyses with the client and formulate with them some plans for what they would like to do in terms of change in their organization. And then we help them get started with that. And at the end, the client comes back and visits and helps us understand how we did. So it's a really fun course to teach. It's a course that students love to take. They work in teams as they do this work with clients, and they learn a lot about the process of consulting and a little bit more about the process of what it takes to work effectively in a team, which you would think we all know already, but we can all get better at it. So they enjoy the course on a number of levels. And the way it relates to their work is, as I said, many of them have an ambition to be consultants working in some of the major consultancies in the world. And we have at least 50 who come for Career Day here in the fall and interview our students at TC because they know the kind of training they receive from us, which is unique and it's different. They also interview students at the Columbia Business School, which is a great business school. You know, they want MBAs to do the kind of work that they do in consulting, but they realize that our students at Teachers College coming out of this program know something different about the art of consulting. They really know how to form relationships with clients. They understand the art of diagnosis. They understand the issues around change, resistance to change, and how to get people more excited about it. And those are things that consulting companies need to master and make sure that they can do. And so our students bring something that's really special, and the consulting firms are glad to hire them.
I teach understanding behavioral research methods, and I find that that's a class that students have a little dread about at first. And when we actually get into the material and we talk about all the tools that that class provides, like learning how to ask good questions, learning how to write surveys, learning how to do assessments for any kind of program or intervention that you do in the workplace, students find that's actually really helpful. And over the number of years, I've gotten calls from students either calling me to say, hey, I'm so surprised, I actually used something from your class, or to call me to ask me some questions to follow up on some of the material that we actually covered in class. So I find that to students' surprise, what we talk about in class is really helpful for them.
So my teaching is in the area of group dynamics. I teach a class called Group Dynamics: A Systems Perspective. I also teach a class on creating and sustaining high-performing teams. And really in both of those classes, I teach students the knowledge and the skills to really understand groups and teams from the inside out. So to understand what makes teams work, what's going wrong when teams are not working, it's not just what's going on sort of at the surface level or what teams are saying, what members of teams are saying to each other, but also what's going on underneath. What are people not saying? Who has power and authority explicitly? Who has power and authority implicitly? How do differences affect how teams work together? How is diversity managed in teams? What is the organizational context around the team in which it's functioning? So individual behavior in teams and the team's location in the environment. And I think it's really a set of courses or coursework that students bring to their work lives every day. So what I like to say is that my job is easy because the topic that I teach is interesting and it's everywhere. Group dynamics are in everybody's job. They're in our communities, they're in our family, they're in the world, they're on TV, they're in current events. So students learn how to deeply understand dynamics in groups and systems, to think about how to move differently in groups and systems, to be able to affect better team performance, better family life, better community relationships, really to think about the problems of the world through looking through a group dynamics lens. And because I teach group dynamics from a systems perspective, I'm always helping students look at every level of a group, so individual, team in the organization, organization in its context in the world, and teaching them to look at multiple levels within those levels. So it's not just what's on the surface, but what's going on underneath, what's unconscious, what's not talked about, what's not said, what's known but never discussed. And my students talk about what they learn in group dynamics as being like a new set of glasses or a superpower, that they're able to see groups and teams and systems and communities in ways that they never were able to see before. And that is really inspiring to me and feels like a privilege and something that I think students really are able to take to their day-to-day work lives and apply every day.
Yeah, I'm currently a management consulting by trade. I work in full-time with the Human Capital Consulting. I teach the Human Resources Management course as an adjunct. And the topics that I see come up a lot is how do you make sure that HR is a strategic function, strategic partner? And a lot of the students maybe have the perception that HR is more administrative, so we try to broaden the horizon to think, how do you leverage the talent management, the organizational design, the ability to adapt to change for organizations, because organizations are changing quite rapidly and they need to pivot immediate and frequently. And so how do you make sure you harness your talent to support that pivot?